Good evening and welcome. Tonight I'm going to read to you some articles out of History Magazine about Christmas. I'm going to read to you this article about the poem "Twas the Night Before Christmas." Then I will read to you this article about the Nutcracker. And then we're going to finish it off with a photo essay from the World War I Christmas Truce. These articles were chosen by my channel members. They were chosen by Alessia, Chris W., Miss Snitch Whispers, Marta, OK Commuter, Laura Taylor. I have to specify because I have 3 Lauras now. Laura Taylor, Vladlin, Fiona, Alex, CMB, and Cappy. Thanks so much for suggesting these holiday articles for us. And if you would like to choose a History Magazine article in the future, you can click the join button right down there and become a channel member for only 99 cents a month, US cents a month, and you get all kinds of behind the scenes. Now is the time to do it if you really want behind the scenes, because Vlogmas just started yesterday and I'm posting 25 vlogs about my life and my adventures in Idaho for the rest of this month until Christmas. And lots of other bonuses. I should also be getting the next issue of History Magazine in a couple weeks. So that means that a new suggestions video will be going up probably before Christmas. So if you really want to submit articles, now is the time to join. I'd love to have you there. Also, just a bonus, I'm filming in my new house, and I can actually film in the daytime in the neighborhood I'm in. So the sun's setting, so you can see some sunlight hitting my window. It won't be there for long. It's almost winter and the sun's fading fast, so probably, maybe by the time I'm finished filming this video, the sun will be gone. So if you see that, that's just the sunlight outside. But let's get into reading with "Twas the poem behind an American Christmas." I don't know if they celebrate this poem as much in other countries. It's all over the United States, and in fact, I had to memorize it in kindergarten. We sat in a circle every day and recited it until we all had it memorized. It's like an obsession here. So let's read more about A Visit from St. Nicholas. The American obsession with Santa Claus and the tradition of gift-giving merriment have a more complicated background than one might think. A peek at the December 23rd, 1823 issue of the Troy Sentinel offers a clue. On that day, readers could peruse ads for buffalo robes and local honey, or learn about the latest events in Congress. But those feeling the holiday spirit may have been drawn to the words "'Twas the night before Christmas" on page 3. The poem was brief, just a few stanzas, and at the time anonymously authored. Originally titled "Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas," the poem told the tale of a father's encounter with a lively Santa Claus and his reindeer. Modern readers who know the poem better by its first line may see its account of Santa's sojourn to a house filled with sleepy children and carefully hung stockings as a comforting depiction of a traditional Christmas. But its lines, claimed by Clement Clark Moore, didn't just reflect Christmas, they shaped it. The poem would go on to change the face of the holiday in the United States and beyond. A holiday recipe. It is not clear how the unsigned poem made its way to the Troy Sentinel. Sent anonymously, it was just one of many poems in the paper that day. Its origins are contested, but Moore later claimed to have written it for his 9 children and to have read it out loud on Christmas Eve, 1822. Though the verse's origins were murky, their appeal was clear to editors who passed it to other papers for republication, a common practice among 19th century periodicals. It gives readers a perfect template of what a domestic Christmas should look like, says Thomas Royce Smith, a professor of American literature and culture at the University of East Anglia, who studies the history of Christmas in the United States. Oh, what a research topic. Far from tradition, Moore's poem contained all the elements for a different kind of Christmas, one that, though relatively new, seems as normal as Easter eggs and Halloween jack-o'-lanterns today. The poem spread, and readers besieged the Sentinel to ask who authored it. Only with the publication of the New York Book of Poetry anthology 14 years later did an author, classic scholar Clement Clarke Moore, step forward. By then, the poem had beguiled a generation of children and influenced the Christmas traditions of generations to come. Before the 1820s, Smith explains, Christmas would have been unrecognizable to modern readers. Observation of the holiday, when it was celebrated at all, varied widely from region to region and usually involved street festivities and heavy drinking. Christmas isn't widely celebrated in America at that point, Smith tells History. When it is, it's a rowdy street celebration drawing on old world traditions. Those customs had become popular in Western Europe, then spread to the U.S. along with the first waves of immigrants to the new nation. All right, sorry if you could hear the neighbor's dog. That's Cookie, a little Shih Tzu. Hope she wasn't too loud, but I cut out most of her. Let's continue. Creating Christmas. The traditions reflected in Moore's poem could not be more different. Instead of adult revelry, Moore's Christmas involves sleeping children and a twinkling elf who sneaks into their homes at night to deliver gifts. Both toy-filled stockings and Santa himself are Dutch in origin, derived from the Netherlands' annual feast celebrating Sinterklaas, or St. Nicholas, on December 5th. Dutch New Yorkers recognized the holiday in their homes, but those without Dutch roots would only know about the tradition from fantastical stories by the likes of Moore's friend Washington Irving. Irving's 1809 story, A History of New York, a parody credited to a fictitious Dutch author, includes a dream in which a pipe-smoking St. Nicholas astonishes observers by flying through the sky in an enchanted wagon. Moore was not Dutch, but he was a New Yorker, and he borrowed prodigiously from Dutch traditions while writing the poem. He elaborated on customs and mixed in others, such as Santa's legendary reliance on reindeer to pull his sleigh, an idea taken from an 1821 poem, also anonymously published in New York. Moore went one step further, giving the reindeer names that originally included Dunder and Blitzen, which are thunder and lightning in Dutch. Moore's poem arrived at a crucial moment, says Smith. It's right at the pivot point where Christmas becomes far more of a domestic celebration focused on the family, the home, and children. In the early days of the United States, celebrating Christmas was controversial, especially to those who subscribed to the austere Calvinism of America's early white settlers. But changes were afoot by the early 1800s. As cities matured and industrialization beckoned, Americans began associating the holiday with the comforts of home. Assisted by a growing mass media that gave the poem a wider audience, Christmas became a time for family and childlike wonder. That magic didn't include what some considered a critical part of Christmas, Christianity. The poem sidesteps religion, depicting a secular holiday that offers a happy Christmas to all. That contrasted with the opinions of many with the Calvinist view that Christmas be a solemn holiday, if celebrated at all. It also fueled an ongoing dispute about how religious Christmas should be, a debate that, Smith notes, still rages today. New traditions. If Moore's mix of Dutch tradition and magic, including stockings, supernatural chimney descents, and flying reindeer, was the recipe, Americans followed it to a T. The poem's popularity led families without Dutch roots to try hanging up their stockings and giving gifts, posing as a mysterious Saint Nick. Soon, Americans were adopting the traditions of other cultures too, from decorating German Christmas trees to sending and receiving Christmas cards, a practice inaugurated by England's Queen Victoria in 1843. This was accelerated by retailers who encouraged Christmas consumption and even made up traditions of their own, such as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, an invention of advertiser and department store scion Robert L. May. Along the way, a visit from St. Nicholas persisted. It has been set to music by artists like Louis Armstrong and Perry Como, recited in films from The Santa Claus to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's a great movie. So is The Santa Claus. And formed the basis of many parodies. Maybe its appeal lies in its sing-song rhymes, so easy for both children and parents to memorize. Or the idea of a rotund, mischievous Santa whose secretive work happens each Christmas Eve. Regardless, the poem is still one of the most widely read American poems of all time, and an appealing template onto which Americans can project their whims and worries about the meaning of an ever-evolving holiday. Perhaps its greatest gift is its whimsical, benevolent Santa Claus, described in the poem's original introduction as that homely but delightful personification of parental kindness. Even if a more influenced Santa Claus has long since passed your chimney by, there's no escaping the holiday he helped create, or the nearly universal appeal of a silent house. So here is President Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden reading the story to all these children here. We've got an old-timey St. Nicholas there, dropping some goodies down the chimney. Stockings were hung by the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. Question about authorship. My goodness. So this is Clement Clark Moore, and this is Henry Livingston Jr. And one of these guys wrote the poem, but I guess we believe it's this guy. Here's the replica of the first page of the poem. And of course, good old-timey Santa Claus with the reindeer pulling a sleigh full of toys for the snowy neighborhood. All right, next we are going to read about my favorite Christmas tradition, the Nutcracker. How the Nutcracker conquered the Christmas season. Have you ever been to the ballet? If your answer is yes, chances are you saw the Nutcracker, a production so iconic it is often an audience member's first and sometimes only exposure to ballet. The classic, with music by Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, is much more than tutus and Christmas trees. It changed, maybe even saved, American ballet more than 6 decades after its first performance. Russian roots. In 1891, the Nutcracker was commissioned by one of Russia's imperial theaters, state-owned performance venues and companies that held a monopoly over theatrical performances in Russia's largest cities. Financed by the Tsar, these theaters showcased the sophistication and power of Russian culture, while ensuring the empire maintained strict control over artistic expression. Tchaikovsky collaborated with Marius Petipa, ballet master and choreographer, writing music to order. He based the score on The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, an 1816 novella by Prussian author E.T.A. Hoffmann. The ballet adaptation tells the story of a German family's Christmas party where a family friend gives the children a nutcracker. After the family falls asleep, Clara, sometimes called Marie, depending on the production, sneaks back to the Christmas tree to see her presents, but gets lost in an imaginary world involving a battle between a heroic life-size nutcracker and an evil mouse king. After winning the battle, the nutcracker turns into a prince and takes Clara into a snowy forest. In the second act, Clara and the prince watch a cavalcade of anthropomorphized sweets and treats, including Chinese tea, ginger, and chocolate, pay tribute through dance. At the end of the performance, the Sugar Plum Fairy performs a duet with a cavalier, and Clara leaves with the prince in a flying sleigh. Although Tchaikovsky had found success presenting an abbreviated version of the score months before the ballet's debut, audiences seemed indifferent to the first performances in St. Petersburg. Critics disliked the child-centered storyline and the heavy and wooden steps of the dancers. Part of the issue, writes musicologist Damien Mahier, is that the work was conceived as a ballet féerie, a fairy story that was light on plot and heavy on musical influences. Unlike other ballets of its time, the Nutcracker emphasized fun and magic and lacked the tragic majesty of Tchaikovsky's earlier masterpiece, Swan Lake. But later audiences responded to imaginative transformations and human embodiment of natural phenomena, such as snow and flowers. Magic that added up to what Mahier calls its spectacle of wonder. As a result, the Nutcracker took off during later productions. A new take. The slow-burning success of the ballet prompted its first performance in the United States in 1944, staged by the San Francisco Ballet under director William Christensen. The show rekindled interest in the ballet, but the Nutcracker's most indelible mark on the fledgling American ballet scene was left by the New York City Ballet in 1954. Reimagined by choreographer George Balanchine, one of the greatest in ballet history, who had grown up dancing it in Russia, the production ditched the traditional petit pas choreography for Balanchine's soaring steps and exacting stage directions. With the help of a spectacular set and with Balanchine's ex-wife, prima ballerina Maria Tallchief, originating the new Sugar Plum Fairy, it was a smash hit. Everyone in New York was against it, including the critics, recalled Tallchief. The company was struggling financially. Well, thank God we did stage it, because it saved the company. The Nutcracker became a mainstay for the New York City Ballet and was staged by other ballets over time. It also became synonymous with American ballet, creating a pipeline of new fans. In the 1970s, the American Ballet Theater took it a step further with a made-for-television staging, this time choreographed and reimagined with a darker, more psychologically complex tone by preeminent ballet dancer Mikhail Baryshnikov. I'd never choreographed or even staged a ballet before, he later told Time, but the company needed a commercial success, and that meant a Nutcracker. A holiday must-have. While most companies stage a wider repertoire throughout the year, the Nutcracker is now a permanent part of American ballet. In 2021, the National Endowment for the Arts reported that ticket sales for the Nutcracker account for about an average of 48% of a ballet company's season revenue, and it is staged hundreds of times each year. There's a certain amount of codependency there, says Deborah Demast, program director and artistic advisor of the graduate dance education program at NYU Steinhardt. A ballerina and choreographer, Damast tells history it is an essential and sometimes inescapable ballet for a company of any size. It has all the elements, right? It's got intrigue, it's got magic, it's got candy. Because of its innate appeal to children, its Christmas-time setting, and its showcase of talented dancers in roles like the Sugar Plum Fairy and the Snow Queen, the Nutcracker is often the first or only ballet the public sees. The ballet also enchants dancers who have performed in it. One of my favorite roles to dance was the snow scene, Damast says. Tchaikovsky's music mimics the movements of real snow, and in many productions, fake snowflakes flutter down. You see swirling and flickering, she says. 1 flake, 2 flakes, and then a blizzard starts. It's complex, it's beautiful, it's just magical. Sweets and stereotypes. But the ballet is not all magic, especially for those who point out its racial stereotyping and outdated conceptions of nationality and gender. The second act is particularly controversial, given ballet companies' practice of casting white dancers to perform the Chinese tea segment in yellowface. While some companies have chosen to keep the segment in, movements like Final Bow for Yellowface are challenging directors to portray China through movement, costume, and characterization without racist and demonizing symbols. Many companies have followed suit, from Pacific Northwest Ballet's replacement of a male dancer in yellowface with a green tea cricket, an insect normally considered lucky in Chinese culture, to the Scottish National Ballet's use of traditional Chinese dances during the tea scene. Other productions, like Debbie Allen's Hot Chocolate Nutcracker and the Hip Hop Nutcracker, update the score with the likes of Mariah Carey or feature guest artists such as legendary MC Curtis Blow. Such revisions are criticized by purists who say it is inappropriate to cast modern sensibilities onto ballet. But they are proof of the true flexibility of Tchaikovsky's masterpiece. The beauty of the Nutcracker is that it can be imagined and reimagined, somewhat like Shakespeare, Damast says. Perhaps these new renditions will prompt audiences to attend other ballets, helping dance companies and the holiday magic they create endure year after year. Let's see what pictures we've got. Here we can see the Vienna Festival. Here you go, Vienna Festival Ballet 1981 production. And there's the Sugar Plum Fairy. This is I've always known it as a Celestina. Maybe that's different. It says a Celesta, which, if you know that ding 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 ding, that's where this sound comes from. Let's see. Oh, beautiful. This is from the New York Ballet's 1962 production. Isn't that lovely? And this is the Cavalier down here for the New York City Ballet's 2021 production. His name is Chun Wai Chan. And here's the famous scene of the Nutcracker fighting the Rat King. Let's see who it says this is. It says this is from the 2010 production of the English National Ballet in London. James Streeter is the Mouse King, and Junior Souza, or maybe Hunor Souza, I'm not sure, as the Nutcracker. And there's some original score there. And here is Tchaikovsky, looking very grumpy. Finally, let's take a look at some of these photographs from World War I. Talk about the Christmas Truce of 1941. It says, when World War I broke out in July 1914, many Europeans thought the fighting would be over by Christmas. It wasn't, and nearly 6 months after the war began, Hundreds of thousands of soldiers celebrated the holiday as best they could in the freezing trenches of Western Europe. Let's see this first caption right here. It says, Yuletide cheer. Across Europe, holiday campaigns collected and distributed Christmas gifts to soldiers at the front. British soldiers were sent a brass tin embossed with the profile of Princess Mary, containing chocolate, tobacco, and a note from the King and Queen reading, May God protect you and bring you safely home. German forces received gifts from Kaiser Wilhelm II. Soldiers got pipes, and officers packs of cigarettes. A few days before Christmas, French President Raymond Poincaré, which we'll see in the picture here, visited the Paris warehouse where gifts for French soldiers were being amassed. A large number of packages are ready to be transported to the front, where producers have provided 1,200 bottles, the Paris Daily Le Temps reported on December 22nd, 1914. So let's see this photo. So far left, so I guess that's him right here. The president inspecting all of these goods. And you can see all these very small boxes here, and they're all mismatched, so they're probably from people's families. And we've got workers here breaking open these crates. There's a box here that says pour 6 hommes, for 6 men, for 6 people, right? So I wonder what that was. And we can see all kinds of goodies in the back here. It's fully stocked warehouse shipping out. Looks like they've got bottles going right here, ready to send out to the front. See our next picture. This one says, Merry Little Christmas. Hospital staff made sure that the holiday didn't pass without a little celebration for the wounded. An American volunteer with the British Red Cross, Mary Dexter, wrote letters that detailed holiday preparations. The day after tomorrow is Christmas. We are busy in odd minutes, making gauze stockings for our 200 men. Each one will contain fruit, jam, tobacco. In a Berlin hospital, which is this picture here, nurses handed out treats and decorated small Christmas trees. Louis Johnson, an English nurse, remembered how people gave her simple gifts, such as a pack of cigarettes or a scarf, to pass on to soldiers. German nurse Anna von Mildenberg said this of Christmas 1914. The image will remain with us forever, how we all stood among the soldiers, hands folded fervently, and by the flickering of the Christmas tree candles, in the fir tree scent of the glittering tree, we sang softly the beloved old song, sending it up as an ardent prayer, a heartfelt plea, peace to men on earth. So here we can see this nurse, and this is in Berlin, it says, and it looks like she's handing this injured soldier some, looks like baked goods. It's like a big, maybe like a Danish or something by the looks of it. He's quite badly bandaged there, or very well bandaged. He's badly hurt by the looks of it, from all of these bandages wrapped around his head. But he gets some sweet treats for Christmas that day from this nurse here. And there's a nurse right here decorating a little Charlie Brown tree, as I call them. A little tiny Christmas tree with little tiny, looks like maybe like little notes. There's an ornament there, little ornaments up here. And maybe these are like little wishes or something. It's quite nice, and you can tell we're definitely in the hospital setting from the background here. I mean, if the nurses and the injured man didn't give it away, it's definitely a hospital, right? Let's see our next photo here. Photos, there's 2 of them. This is the famous event, the Peace of Christmas Day. The spontaneous truces that arose along the Western Front, especially those between British and German forces, are among the most famous events of December 1914. On Christmas Eve, German soldiers in some locations decorated the trenches with Tannenbaum, or fir trees, which we'll see in the picture, and sang carols. Wafting across no man's land came a British serenade of Christmas music back to them. The next morning, the men spent time together outside the trenches, exchanging greetings and gifts of rum and cigars. The London Rifle Brigade, which we'll see in the other picture, and Saxon soldiers, say that 10 times fast, Saxon soldiers met in the Pulgstiert forest in Belgium. British non-commissioned officers, which we'll also see, display helmets they received from German soldiers. So here it looks like they've erected a little tree here. And this guy's leading the choir, and everyone's standing around singing songs with the tree. Standing in the trenches here, you can see all the barbed wire back here. Well, and it looks like they've got some gifts here as well. How nice. So this picture is the London Rifle Brigade. And they met up with some soldiers. They look very cold, don't they? But very curious. And down here, these soldiers from the British non-commissioned officers, you can see they're showing off their gifts of authentic World War I German helmets with the little spike on top. They're in the woods there, also looking very cold, all bundled up in their scarves, but looking quite pleased with themselves, aren't they? They got Christmas gifts from the soldiers across the way in the other trenches. Making merry. Perhaps the Truce's most uplifting story has been the hardest to document: soccer games played on Christmas Day, which we'll see up there. Second and third-hand accounts appeared in newspapers and letters, but first-hand testimonies, either of witnessing a soccer or football game or playing in one, were rare. One kickabout was verified by 2 letters written by British soldiers, Corporal Albert Wyatt and Sergeant Frank Naden, describing play in Wolfergem, Belgium. Wyatt's account was published in a newspaper article, which we'll look at, describing kicking a ball between the 2 firing lines. Using similar methods, historians confirmed another match occurred in Freilingen, France. Even though the games were smaller and fewer than originally believed, it did not stop commemorations of the Truce's 100th anniversary in 2014. In Liverpool, England, the sculpture All Together Now was unveiled and then traveled to several locations around Europe. In Saint-Yvon, Belgium, a steel soccer ball atop an exploded shell was presented to honor the Christmas games. So it sounds like there's no photographic evidence of these football matches, but we can see a drawing depicting one here. You can see them playing back there. And here's a German soldier, you can tell by the spike on top, handing a drink to this soldier here. And soldiers here all getting along just for the day. So this is the steel soccer ball on top of a shell here at this memorial to honor that event. Here's the newspaper article that was published, Football in the Firing Lanes, Tetford Corporal among the players. And that's, from the sounds of it, some of the only evidence that we have that this actually happened. And here is the statue that was made to commemorate that event. 2 soldiers here shaking hands over the football there. Very, very nice. Okay, I think we have one more page. Yeah. All right, last picture here. And this one's titled Christmas is Yet to Come. The truce of 1914 did not last, and fighting soon picked up along the Western Front. While newspaper accounts of the holiday observance might have charmed people at home, military commanders were horrified. In the 3 Christmases that followed, they handed down orders that would prevent any further fraternization between the fighting forces. World War I's unyielding savagery might have made them unnecessary. In December 1914, the war was still young, But as hostilities dragged on, battle-scarred soldiers were hardened after years of horror in the trenches. A photograph from 1916 reveals a different attitude toward gift exchanges. Canadian artillerymen on the River Somme front-load a bomb with a macabre message for the Germans. A busting time this Christmas, 1916. You can see that here, the soldier. Busting time this Christmas, 1916. Loading it here into this. It looks like something. Oh, I see. This is the chamber that opens. So it's going inside of this thing here. And he's going to shut that to fire it off. You can see the soldiers here concentrating as they load their weapons. I guess use this part to aim. But yeah, a much different attitude after that one Christmas when the war became very serious. And, once it became clear that this was a fight to preserve or change Europe forever, it became much more serious, much more deadly as well. But that is all that we have tonight. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. And remember that I'm getting a new issue in a couple weeks, so if you want to contribute to future videos, you can click the join button down there and suggest future articles that I'll read on the channel. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good night. These pages feel really thick. I feel like I skipped a page, but